guys, I'm Erica.
And I'm John.
And this is Tax Chats. So, at the end of January, IDC, which is one of 3 large market analyst firms, released the first ever report on global tax software. And since it's the first of its kind, we really thought it would be a great idea to talk to you guys about how you use these kind of reports, why organizations find them beneficial in their process or making decisions.
Yeah, I think really important to understand is how IDC and their brethren in the field, Gartners, the Megas, the Gigas, the Forresters, actually compile these reports. And what they do in general is they draft an RFP that is very broad-based, much more broad-based and detail-oriented than the average consumer of global tax automation software would be able to draft because they just know the market. And they generally look at the feature functionality, the technical architecture, the price, as well as the vision and viability of the various vendors. And then they plot them against an axis. So they form this RFP and they submit it to the various vendors who respond accordingly as to what the attributes of their software are in terms of the, let's say, the technical architecture. They then take those responses and go back to the end user community, organizations similar to yourself that are currently using those solutions, and determine whether or not the vendors are delivering on what they say they're delivering. So at the end of the day, what you have is the ability to at least analyze the vendors on 2 prongs in what we've referred to as the IDC report. It's looking at the relative strengths and the relative capabilities of all the vendors in this space. At that point, it is something that you and your team internally can start to look at and start to frame your decision as to how you're going to move forward through the tax automation process and the vendor selection process. There's a number of ways clients and procurers of this technology utilize the report. There's no established rule of thumb, but there are multiple ways that the report can be digested and analyzed by a particular organization looking at tax software.
Absolutely. So a lot of times when companies speak to me, they a lot of times start with a Google search. So, and that's where you're going to find a lot of different options out there for you. So when you use a report like this, it kind of helps to synthesize that information and really helps to guide where you need to go. So what I'm hearing is, you don't have to go out and do that RFP and all that legwork in the beginning because, these market firms, they're already done all that work for you. So why not just leverage it for your benefit? And if you were following our last video, you heard us talk about the importance of using your IT department and bringing them in earlier. I believe those teams actually have a lot of experience using these kind of reports, right? So bring them in early, and this is a good reason why.
Yeah, and bringing them in early and utilizing these reports is a great foundation. It allows for a lot of benchmarking. It allows for a lot of teamwork to sit down and look at exactly what you're seeking to purchase, what you're seeking to implement, and it gives you a very robust picture of what's going on. To Erica's point, I so often hear some of our clients and people looking at tax automation software say, I Googled it and I found these 9 vendors. Well, that's great. However, what these reports do is define really who are the players in that space, not those that have a Google search engine in there that allows them to get on the top of the list. So they've identified them, they've quantified them, and they've at least mitigated the risk of the vendor selection process to some extent. Now, the only thing you have to do, and believe me, it's a big to-do list, is you have to then bring these vendors together and figure out what's important for your organization and where the benefit will occur with partnering each and every one of these vendors.
Absolutely, John. And another great thing is that you'll have a good understanding of what questions to ask us when you talk to us, because there's nothing worse than talking to myself and then going to, a competitor and finding questions that you might have wanted to have asked me after you've already gone to the next competitor. That doesn't help you, right? So another good reason to use these reports to kind of guide you and know exactly what you're looking for. So specifically with the IDC report, since it came out at the end of January, they actually looked at 7 different vendors, which are actually the only real ones in this industry, right, John?
Yeah, I would say that they really hit the nail on the head with these 7 vendors, and they broke them into groups of the markets in which they participate. But as we advocate and as we state, that this is a really good source for starting your investigation and your process for selecting tax software vendors that are global in nature.
Absolutely, because it is called the IDC MarketScape, and it is about global tax software and VAT, which really means that it's a global reach. And so if you would like to get a brief of this report, you can go to Sovos.com, that is SOVOS.com, idc.com and request a brief. And we encourage you to do that because on the next episode, we're going to dig into what this IDC MarketScape is actually saying and help you understand what all they did. So if that sounds good to you, do that and drop any questions that you have in the comment section below because that'll help us make sure that we can answer them for you at the next episode.
Great, and I think we've really covered the space, and I hope our viewers feel better educated and tune in the next tax chat when we really dive into these reports.
Absolutely. I'm Erica.
And I'm John.
And this is Tax Chats.